Okay, so this is part two. This is a continuation of the first part. Uh, and so using the lasso, I can choose an irregular. If I hit Control Shift A, I can deselect that. So using the lasso, I can create an irregular shape, and whatever's inside of that, I can then manipulate. Okay, so I'm going to undo those portions and hit Control Shift A. Okay, so those are some selection items, and you can experiment with those as well. I'm going to go back to my notes here. And so selection tools. Some of the brushes. One of the things that's interesting about Gimp is that you can use a brush. Now, I am going to create a new blank layer, meaning a layer that has nothing on it. So that's what this little page down here says, create a new layer, and it'll give me a window that I can, and I'm going to just call this brush test. And so it's going to make that, I'm going to say OK. So here's brush test. What that means is I'm going to go over here to my tools, and I'm going to choose a paintbrush, this paintbrush right here. Paintbrush, if I double click it, I get the different options. Now, I have basically what this is going to do, and if I have this panel up here, this is a panel that allows me to see the different shapes or the profiles of the brush shapes that I can. These are the default ones that Gimp has already for me. Now you can make your own, and you can download more, and you can add more brushes, but you have to actually go get them and download them from the internet. So for now, I'm just going to choose the ones that I have. So by default, I get just whatever one I choose. That's the brush profile I'm going to get. So let's say I use this one right here that's just got a nice hard edge, hardness of 1, and I can choose this panel. If this panel isn't up, for instance, if this panel is not up, here's the brush editor. You can go to Windows and say Dockable Dialogues and choose Brushes, and here it is. So there's a lot of things that are kind of hidden, and you can pull it out. So if I choose this one, what's cool is I can adjust the size by a slider here, and you can see that if I was to take that, I can paint the shape of that. It's a very large size. I don't want that. Another way to do that interactively is to use your right and left bracket. Left bracket will shrink that brush. Notice I'm holding and it's getting smaller, and then the right bracket will make it go larger. Or if I can go over here and drag this down, that's a whole lot faster. I can change the color of it. I can change the color and the shape by going up here and double clicking on that and choosing a different color. Don't need that. Sorry about that. And if I go back over to my brush, oops, I double click. That's acting funny. I've got my brush here, and one of the things that I can do is I could use a different brush. If I wanted to use the star, I'd paint stars. If I want to change the different aspect ratios of it, I can change. I can do that. I'm going to drag that around. If I change the angle, I can change that too. Some of these things are. I'm going to reset. These are reset attributes, so I can go back to my original size. All right. And if I choose a brush that has a texture to it, like this pattern, then when I paint, I can paint a texture. Now, another thing that's interesting is the spacing. So as I decrease the spacing and drag, you can see it becomes more of a line, more of a block. And if I increase the spacing, then it's going to draw them more independently around. And that's handy if you were wanting to do something like dotted lines. So if I have my layer here, and if I hit Control A and I hit delete, it'll delete everything. Control A will select everything in that layer, and then delete will delete it. And I'm going to hit Control Shift A, and then I can go back and paint. So if I just use my brush as is and I click and drag, I'm just going to smear black across all pixels. If I increase the spacing, I can it won't draw a, anything until it reaches a certain space. And there are some other really interesting things. So apply jitter. Well, no matter how straight I paint, it will. I'm going to decrease the spacing, and then it'll add some jitter to it, and it automatically makes it all jittery. See how this was smooth? I'm going to draw the same way, but it's applying a jitter. So, alright, with that I can add different stippling, so that's kind of neat, and I can increase the spacing on that. And I could fill a page with, and if I made it super big, then I can put spots all over this. Alright, I'm going to hit Control A again, and then Control Delete, and then hit Control Shift A to deselect. Alright, so there's brushes. If I wanted to use a pencil, I could choose a pencil, and I could again adjust the attributes of that pencil if I wanted to. I use the brush a lot. Okay, so there's brushes. Now there's also text. So if I wanted to, say instead, I'm going to hit Control A and then hit Control and then just plain delete and then hit Control Shift A to deselect. Notice that when something is selected, it gets this little line around it, and it gets these little dancing dots, and those are called dancing ants in Photoshop. If I want to deselect, I'm going to hit Control Shift A. Now if I hit Control A, it selects the entire thing. Notice how the outer edge is selected. I'm going to hit Control Shift A, and notice that it's stopped. Okay. So that's a little bit about brushes. There's some very interesting things that you can do with different types of brushes. So some different tools, such as the blur tool. If I went down to the puppy dog, and if I went to a different shape of a brush, a hard edge, and I went over the eye and I drag over that, notice that it starts to, well, it's blurring actually underneath it. If I went here and I can blur that out, notice how that eye is now blurry, or I can blur the pixels on the edges of that. If I went to this brush, which is called the smudge, I could smudge the pixels of this character. So I can actually, I'm actually manipulating those. I'm going to hit Control Z to get rid of all that as far back as I can. And there's tools like dodge and burn, which will change the intensity values of the pixels. So I can do something like that. I can also use another thing that's very interesting is a clone brush. So that means if I use a clone brush will allow me to sample. Actually, I'm going to undo that. Will allow me to sample a layer. For instance, this puppy dog eye right here. And if I hit the Alt button or the Control button and click, it's going to sample that region. And if I move up to a new brush, a new layer, I can actually paint that part of the image, wherever that is, into a new region. So if I wanted to give this dog, if I want to sample that ear and paint it up here, oops, I'm going to sample. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. I got to do it to the layer I'm on. Click and then move to the layer I want to paint it onto, and I could paint it up there. Okay, so interesting things you can do with that. We have a lot of fun with that in some of my intro classes. All right, so you can also use the text tool. So let's say we wanted to make this a little gift card or something like that, or not a gift card, but a card. So if I go to my text tool, if I hit select, I can go down and I can drag. I noticed that my outline along this edge is dancing, so I'm going to hit Control Shift A to stop that. And then I'm going to go to my text tool, and I'm going to click and drag a little text box here. And in that space, I can type in a message. So, hello. And so if I have this selected, I'm going to click and drag over that, and I can choose the different kinds of text that I want. So right now it's using sans, but maybe we want to use Arial. And it gives me some different text options. I can choose the size of what I want, and the color. By clicking on this, I can choose a different color If I want to, I can choose different regions and saturation values. Or what I like to do when you do something like this is actually choose a color from the composition. So this little dog is brown. Maybe I want to choose a brown color from his fur. And let me see. My color seems to be having a little bit of a problem with that. I'm going to choose this brown color. And it's not taking it, so I'm having a little bit of a glitch with that. So I'm going to choose that brown and say okay. Well, this one it took it on this one, so let me go back into this box and change that one real quick. I'm going to choose this brown sample. Alright, now I've changed it to brown, and then keeping it in kind of in theme with the actual picture here. Now let's say I wanted to add more text. I could add more text, and notice that the text is a layer on top of these other elements. Okay. Let's say I wanted to add a drop shadow to this. Sometimes you can add effects. I'm going to take this and cancel that. I'm going to go up to filters, and I'm going to go down to say enhance. I'm not sure where it is actually. I got to find it again. Light and shadows. That's where I want. So I can add like a drop shadow, and so I can choose where it's going to be, the opacity of it, allow resizing. I do want to do that. I can offset it by a few pixels, 4 pixels. Let's go 5 pixels wide, and it'll blur it out a little bit. I don't want it to be that big. I'm going to say it's blurred about 5. I'm going to say OK. And when it does that, there's my drop shadow. Now what it does is it actually adds that on a separate layer, so I can move that around if I want, and I can also change its opacity here too, so I can add a little bit of softness to that. So that adds a nice little touch to the text. Okay, and so that kind of stuff is something that you can do with Gimp. You know, again, you could paint your own images, and that's a whole other thing. There's plenty of tutorials on that, but this is kind of just an idea. Now, in my next demo, I'm just going to demonstrate laying out a kind of a web page using a lot of text and some of the tools that you would use to design a web page, just so you kind of get a feel for that.